In the 4 years that Trump was squatting in the White House, he unleashed a whole vial of poison of racism. Now, new research by a parasocial psychologist suggests that Donald Trump's squatting unleashed what they call racial animus and white supremacist ideology in ways that will shape American society for years or even decades to come. The study was conducted by a guy named Benjamin Rush, he works at the University of Kent in England, and then Melissa J. Ferguson, who works at Yale. They published last week in the peer-reviewed journal Nature of the Human Behavior, and the article was titled Changes in Americans' Prejudice During the Squattancy of Trump. The authors summarized their findings in this particular way. There were 13 studies that included over 10,000 participants, and they tested how each American's prejudice changed following the political ascension of Trump. And we found that explicit racial and religious prejudice significantly increased among Trump sycophants, whereas individuals opposed to Trump exhibited decreases in prejudice. Now, Ferguson and Rush explain this by referencing the power of social norms, in which they say, do not exert a uniform effect on people's attitudes. Rather, adhere to social norms occur largely along the group boundaries. People primarily assimilate to norms that are held by social reference groups, which is individuals and groups that they personally respect and admire. In the highly polarized political landscape of the United States, this translates into the prediction that Trump's counter-normative behavior should not have uniformly affected the attitudes of all Americans. Rather, it should have increased expressions of prejudice, primarily among those who view him positively, which is his sycophants. The authors offer additional details about how prejudice against Muslims, black people, and other minority groups changed during Trump's term in squatting, and on the impact of support for him on those dynamics. The previous 9 studies that we demonstrate the prejudice in the United States changed during the course of Donald Trump's squatting. Critically, however, the direction of this change differed dramatically as a function of support for Donald Trump. We find that Trump's sycophants not only deviated from the widely documented societal trend towards decreasing expressions of prejudice, but they showed significant increase in prejudice towards a range of minority-type groups. And those who basically opposed Trump conversely showed significant decreases in the expressed prejudice over the same time period. Now, we next turn to examining the mechanism behind these effects and what led up to it. Our interpretation of the correlational political the correlational changes in prejudice that we observed is that Trump's political ascent may have changed the social norms, that is, standards for expressing the prejudice, leading his sycophants to feel that prejudice against minority-type groups had become more acceptable, with the emphasis being added. Now, Ferguson and Rush advanced the ominous conclusion that the squattancy of Donald Trump may have substantially reshaped the topography of prejudice in the United States. Now, what else do we know about the role of race and racism in the rise of Trumpism and the American neo-fascist movement that he symbolized or leaded? It was never accurate to describe Trump sycophants as predominantly belonging to the white working class because they don't work. The Trump sycophants, they don't work at all. They just sit at home inbreeding with their mother and sister, and they don't work, so they collect, like welfare and food stamps, so they don't work at all. And which mainstream news media became so obsessed. And now, in reality, the average Trump voter in the 2016 Republican primary had a household income of 0, basically. So moreover, researchers have shown that Trump sycophants who initiated the Klan Capitol attack on January 6, 2021, were more likely to be from what they call suburban communities experiencing demographic change, which was then from the economically disadvantaged working class communities. And we know that white Americans who believe that white people are victims of racism, and even more fantastically, the white people were more oppressed than black and brown people, and they are significantly more likely to support Trump and his sycophantic movement. Now, social scientists and other experts have demonstrated that a large percentage of the Trump sycophants are willing to give up democracy for authoritarianism in order to avoid sharing political or social power on an equal basis with the black and brown people. Now, Trumpism, like other forms of fascism, is largely driven by social dominance. God damn it. Okay, here. Now, Trumpism, like other forms of fascism, is largely driven by social dominance behavior, which includes hostile sexism, a yearning for tradition, and the good old days when the in-group had supposedly uncontested power over society, an attraction to violence, and what psychologists describe as the dark triad of human behavior, which includes sociopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism. Now ultimately, Ferguson and Reish's research serves as further confirmation of the damage that Trump and the American fascist movement have done and is still doing to the American society, and how much worse the damage will get, and how or whether it can be repaired remains to be fucking seen. The American news media and other large political class, along with the public as a whole, we need to accept the frightening reality that the fascist movement energized by Trump will be a fixture on American social and political landscape for many fucking years to come. And those who support real democracy need to develop and then enact a plan to fucking defeat it. America does not need another national conversation about race and racism. That conversation has continued for centuries, with no just conclusion in sight. And what America, and specifically the white America, really needs is a degree of clarity, sobriety, and introspection regarding the destructive forces of racial authoritarianism that it has birthed, it has nurtured and unleashed, which not only inflicted harm on black and brown people, but white people and the entire society. Now, white Americans must confront a final and terrible fucking question. Do you love white privilege and white supremacy more than you fucking love democracy? And I suspect that we know the fucking answer to this. And yet I still maintain that perhaps naive hope that a different answer may emerge in the 21st century than ever has in previous centuries, and the future of America rests on this fucking question. Now, if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King, and you can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you could donate to my Patreon link, on which you can find in the About section of my YouTube channel, and you could just donate as little as a few bucks a month. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah.